everyone. So today this is our last lecture, by the way, of the semester. So I hope you guys have learned awesome self-care tools that you can, continue to take into your growth as a person, through your career, through your personal life. So we are now moving on to spiritual self-care, and then we're going to jump right into workplace self-care. Okay? So I think because the word is spiritual isn't always the most popular word, because I think a lot of people just connect it straight to religion. And so people who are not connected to a religion can quickly get turned off by spiritual. Or maybe they might connect spiritual to like crystals or like, what else? Like, I just thought of the other word for spiritual stuff. Just maybe like astrology, right? Just anything that's a little bit different, or like tarot card reading. Just anything that has spiritual, and all of those things are, connected to spiritual ties, right? But their spiritual self-care is deeper than that. So the spiritual self-care is something I kind of talked about on the lecture of when I was talking about self-worth, right? It's really kind of like who you are at your core. That's your spirit. And so I kind of want to talk about it like that way, right? It's like your soul, right? It's really who you are. So it's your energy, it's your likes, your dislikes, your passion, emotion, intellect, creativity, and that really is your fundamental self, right? And so I like to say, think of yourself like as a child. This is before you had a career. This is before you had income. This is before you had, adult relationships. Really think about who you were, that little person, and those things in your head, your desires, what made you happy, what you like to do. And so sometimes connecting to the younger self can help us remind us more of who the fundamental self was. So I know for me, about a year ago, I was doing this kind of activity and realized a huge part of me as a child was a creative self, and I was lacking that in my adulthood, and I felt it lacking, and I have embraced it, and I've welcomed it back in, and I feel more whole now. So that can be really cool. So it's really about like when all of like the labels, the roles, the titles in your possessions, right? When they're stripped away, that's where your spirit is, right? It's really the essence of you. And it's been there since the beginning of you. So that's why I like to say, let's connect to your childhood person, right? It's really been there all along. So spiritual self-care, it revolves around engaging in activities that turn our attention inward and reconnecting with ourselves. It helps us to deeper understand what matters to us most and what we believe in. So I would say that the spiritual self-care component for me kind of came after I did a lot more of the other. So after I started to tie in of the other components of my self-care, I think spiritual self-care is like a little bit more on like the self-actualization, top of the Maslow pyramid, right? Like spiritual self-care takes a little bit more, it takes a little bit more understanding of the self, and you've done a lot more self-growth and self-work to kind of get here, right? Not all the time, but that's just been my experience. All right, so spiritual self-care includes taking time away from like the daily grinds to getting quiet and turning into our inner wisdom. Sometimes it's connecting ourselves to something, connecting to something larger than ourselves, right? So this could be maybe a faith community, or and maybe not. This spiritual self-care can include spending time in nature, seeking guidance through prayer or meditation. It can be practicing yoga, journaling, or spending time in personal reflection. So I know I talked about some of these in the self-worth part that I kind of did. So I know for me, I went on a yoga retreat recently, and I was feeling really burnt out before that retreat. I was putting a lot of, I was teaching, taking care of my kids, working from home as a supervisor for therapists, and just kind of like helping a lot of other people. And then I was trying to do like my blog on the side, which is kind of like an outlet for me, but it was becoming more of a task because I was burning out, and I was putting a lot of pressure on it. And so I went on a yoga retreat that my talented friend, who is also a professor at Laverne, Michelle Pesos, put on, right, with her studio, which is called United Yoga Studio. It's in San Dimas, if you ever want to check it out. And they do sliding scale fees, by the way. And when I say yoga retreat, it's not like glitz and glam. There were healing groups, and there was a lot of crying, and it was really powerful. And it can help. It's crazy because it's like there were so many meditation pieces that brought me so close to me, who I am, while also connecting with others. And so it was a very beautiful experience. Things like this are things like that experience are things that can really help us be more in line with who we are, our fundamental self. And so that can be really cool. A lot of yoga classes can do that too. There's a class called restorative yoga, and they have those at the United Yoga Studio. And the restorative yoga is kind of like meditative yoga. So it's not like a typical flow class you would experience. It's kind of more resting, like sleepy yoga, but you are doing a lot of internal work and being so connected to your body, with your body through it. So it can be very powerful. And I think I want to take 1 second is to talk about why is this important? Because this is being connected to the fundamental self helps you remind you of what path are you on. Is it connected to your fundamental self, right? Because we can get so disconnected from the fundamental self and our core, and be so strapped into the daily to-dos and our roles as a career person, as a parent, as a partner. Where are we in that? And you can become almost like disengaged and almost like looking down right on it, and that's not healthy, right? And that can, when we start to see anxiety, depression, burnout. So this question might be harder for some than others. It's a deep question. How do we really want to be remembered, right? And so this connects to our spiritual self because it's kind of like an ending type of question. Reminding yourself that you're not going to be remembered by the car you drove. Probably not. You're not going to be remembered by how many, raises you got by being like working all the time, right? You're going to be remembered by how you were with people and the time you spent with them and the support you gave and the model you were to others, by, caring for yourself. And so I think this is a really powerful question of how do you want to be remembered? And I think that typically in class, we would take some time to really think about that. And I'll just give about 30 seconds here to you kind of brainstorm of how do you want to be remembered by your loved ones once, you're not in this, as a, living being on this planet. All right. And I know that question can be a little existential and a little challenging and hard to face. But I think it's an important one to really kind of put back into perspective of what really matters in life, as opposed to what we kind of just get sucked into day to day, like material items. So, how do we engage in our spiritual self care? And so, it's definitely listening to your inner voice. So, kind of sitting long enough to do that, away from, distractions like the television, phones. Listening to your inner voice can help you connect to who you are and what really matters most to you. So, even just setting aside 5 minutes a day to just be quiet, indoors or outdoors in nature, and sitting and being still with no distractions. You can even journal like what comes up for you in these 5 minutes. It can be really helpful. And some people need a little longer. I'll be honest, for myself, I wish it just took 5 minutes, but a lot of times like I need 5 minutes just to like disconnect with like what was happening before, sitting down to do this. And so 10 to 15 minutes is more realistic for me. Being of service to others can help support our spiritual self-care, because helping others helps us feel connected to other people, and it causes like that are like helping other causes helps us feel like there's like something larger than ourselves, right? So it kind of helps put our problems into perspective, and it kind of helps us remind ourselves like, it's not just me, like, wow, other people feel hardships too, and I'm not alone in that. And so that can be really great for us. And it can be like just little things like volunteering, making the time. So when I say make the time, I mean, you can start pretty small, such as I said, like setting 5 minutes aside a day. It can be scheduling a yoga class and making time for that and committing to it. Could be spending some time in nature. But what I recommend is just kind of taking some time to really think about what you could do coming up, even if it's just a little bit of time. Centering yourself. This is important. So it involves training yourself to maintain focus on what matters most, even in the midst of stressful situations. So when we're stressed, our minds can shower us with a downpour of negative thoughts, right? We can become flooded and overwhelmed emotionally, and then our bodies just become like containers of tension that are just like ready to blow at any moment. So centering us helps us stay calm and grounded when we're feeling overwhelmed or afraid. It can help us regain perspective in the midst of chaos, and transform our anxiety into calm and positive energy. So for work, I've engaged in crisis management, right? I've helped kiddos, dealing with suicidality, homicidality, and helping manage that crisis, right? So centering myself was a major tool for me to get through it, because I needed to I needed to focus my mind on what mattered most, which was maintaining a child's safety and myself getting home safe in order to get through it correctly. So making sure that even in stressful situations, we can center ourselves and really see like what's the outcome we need out of this, right? Is really important. Breath work. Turning to your breath when you're feeling anxious, stressed, etc., to regain calmness really is everything. And it's from being deep in that belly, right? Not our chest. If we're breathing from our chest, can actually cause more build up there and more tightening there. Which is bad for anxiety. So we really want to breathe from our belly, which can help by actually putting our hand on our physical belly when we're breathing in and out. Deep breathing, it's one of the best tools out there to help us find calm in the midst of stress, and it really is a built-in relaxation system. We can use it anytime we want. How great is that? It's a tool that's always with us, and it's one of those self-care tools that is free, and it is absolutely one of the best. If you're someone who says deep breathing doesn't work for me, then you haven't done it right, or you haven't fully opened yourself up to it. And so if you are someone like that, then I would suggest taking a more of a meditative type of class to help you really work on it. And it's a process, definitely. So part of our spiritual self-care is not believing everything you think, which is such a confusing concept, right? Because you're like, I'm thinking it, how is it not true? So yeah, it's true. You're having a thought such as I'm a failure. You're having the thought, but that doesn't mean it's true, right? So it's like accepting, we don't want to accept the label that we're a failure because we're having the thought, right? So we can actually separate our thoughts from the actual truth. And this goes back to cognitive behavioral therapy too, like I've mentioned, where it's like we want to identify what are unhelpful, untrue thoughts and help improve them. But again, we can't control all of our thoughts, but we can definitely differentiate between what's truthful and what's not truthful. So growing is huge. Spiritual growth, it's not always direct. It's definitely a journey without a final destination. I would say that's what all self-care is, right? I would say one way to make this easier is finding your tribe, right? Finding people who have similar spiritual values and aspirations that you do. It's kind of like once you've done the inner work of finding out what your spiritual values are, then you can kind of find a group of people who practice similar spiritual self-care alongside with you. This could be spiritual communities. This could be exploring nature with fellow nature lovers. This could be doing meditation yoga with others. This is huge, and this is great to be around people who are spiritually aligned with you. Protect your peace. Protecting your peace is about helping your mind keep focused on thoughts, images, and memories that help us feel calm. Protecting your peace might mean avoiding certain things such as people or social media if you're feeling like you're comparing yourself and fueling your negative thoughts and feelings about yourself. So protecting your peace might be that you are limiting your usage of social media when it's almost just becoming a way to validate your negative thoughts. So I think the question, another little bit of an existential one, is what will you do with your life? And so I think this is a question to take some time on and sit with, and maybe something you want to journal later is, what do you really want to do while you are on this planet? And so that is it for our spiritual self-care. I'm going to go straight into our vocational self-care. So, very different topic. This one's pretty short, but important, because I think all of the other self-care domains go into the vocational self-care, right? So our relational self-care, our spiritual self-care, our intellectual self-care, our emotional self-care, our physical self-care, like they all align with our vocational self-care, right? Okay, so let's see. Oh, and the benefits, right, of vocational self-care, I mean, they go beyond just money, right? Because at the end of the day, the salary doesn't buy you fulfillment, satisfaction. It can't buy you passion, right? And so for me, I'm kind of in this place of I worked 12 years or longer I've worked like 14 years, right? And to get to where I am now, my vocational or my career. And I'm at a salary that I have strived for, I have worked for. And now that I'm there, I'm questioning, wait, is this my passion? Is this what I want to do? And I've thought that all along, but I think there was always other goals. Like, okay, well, I need to, go to grad school. Okay. I need to work in the field. Okay. I need to get licensed, right? I need to, um, move up in my career. And I've done all of those things. And so now I'm at the point where I'm going, okay, is this bringing me my passion? And so I'm finding my passion, which my field is my career, but I don't know if my paid position is my passion, is what I'm saying. And so I'm finding other outlets in my career that I am more passionate about. I'm passionate about teaching and sharing this knowledge. I'm passionate about sharing my knowledge through writing. I'm not necessarily so passionate about my, career position that brings in my salary. I love aspects of it, absolutely, but I don't love all the aspects of it. And so that's kind of the place I'm in. And so that's where to kind of explain that vocational self-care goes, beyond just the money. Your vocational needs are the types of work, training, and volunteering that you feel you're more interested in, right? Because you connect to them to a deeper sense of purpose. So your vocational needs are being met when you are using your strengths and your talents in the work. So it's definitely more than a paycheck, right? So some barriers to vocational self-care. So work is an area where a lot of people feel dissatisfaction in their lives. A Gallup survey was done that 51% full-time employees reported not feeling engaged at work. People can feel so stuck in their job so often that they still need their paycheck to make ends meet. And because of that, they can continue just to work and work and work. Because they need to get their paycheck, and they don't have they don't have time on the side to really go after what they're really passionate about, right? So that can make people feel trapped. People are overqualified for their position. So this happens a lot where people don't feel fulfilled because they can only find a part-time position when they really want a full-time one, or there's no room to move up, and so you kind of feel stagnant, right? People like to learn and grow. Struggling to find consistent work. So that can be hard too, right? Despite your talents and experience and education. So some work is based more on, job to job, right? And so that can be hard to find consistent work in that. So some tips to improve vocational self-care are weighing pros and cons of the current position. So I know, like, I would say, like, not every single job is 100% awful or 100% amazing, right? And so I think that pros and cons can also go with like the stage you are in your life and like what your needs are at the moment, right? And so they can kind of change and develop as you go. So for example, before I was a supervisor, I was, an active therapist working with kiddos in the field of Los Angeles. And I was really tired of driving all over. And so that was a big con for me. But the pro was that I loved working with the kids. And then a con was also I started to feel stagnant and I wasn't growing anymore. Another con was that my pay was lower. And so I got a new job, a few years ago of being a supervisor, and it was office based. And so if I compare office, and I had a commute, but if I compare that to being in the field where I was driving everywhere, it just, it was way better. I would love to be office based. And then I was getting paid more, and the con was that I wasn't working with kids anymore, and I wasn't actually an active therapist. I was only getting it through helping therapists work with kids, which is cool too. And then, what I'm saying is that it changes over time, because like my job was meeting all my needs, and the pros did outweigh the cons. But now I'm at a place where not feeling 100% fulfilled. And so that's a con. And a pro is that we are now home based. And I love now working from home. I find I'm more productive. I find my self care is better because I can, as a working mom, I can literally wake up, work out, drop my kids off at school, and be working, right? If I added a commute in that, my workout's gone. And so I would have a hard time with that change. And so if we go back to the office, that's a con for me, right? A big one for me is losing working from home. And so there's the pros and cons will change and fluctuate, but it's important to really evaluate how it is for you. Um, Engaging in hobbies outside of the workplace is really important. I work with therapists who have a very challenging position. You know, they're in sessions all day and it's draining. And so I really do encourage them to do their hobbies outside of the workplace to really help fuel them for the next day. Definitely another tip is restoring yourself. So restorative practices, like I said, the restorative yoga is amazing. Just taking time to, like, I've been taking more days off because I've been feeling a little unfulfilled. And so I'm taking days off to just restore. And so, you know, working all the time really isn't good for us. And it's not even good for our productivity while we're at work. And so I almost find myself more productive when I take more days off as opposed to working all the time, right? I'm less productive because I'm tired and I'm burning out. So scheduling breaks in is important. Not everyone can schedule breaks in, but I know for me, I schedule breaks in. I even will tell myself like even a break to me sometimes might be that I have to force myself to cook food since I'm home, and so that's kind of my break, as opposed to just like preparing the food and then jumping and grabbing it and eating right by the computer. And then protecting your weekends. So if you have like work email on your phone, turning it off. You need weekends to really mentally fully recharge. If you feel stuck or unhappy at your current position, focusing on how to grow to be more attractive for your next job, such as taking extra trainings or a certificate for a new position, could also be utilized on your weekends. And that might help you feel like less stagnant, less stuck in your current position, right? Because you're working on other things to grow. I know I even had to set the boundary with like my mom. She's someone we usually visit on Sundays, and on Sundays she likes to prep for Monday, and she checks her email, her work emails, and she preps, and I'm always, like, it gives me anxiety, and so have had to tell her to set the boundary, like, okay, when I come over, like, I can't hear about work yet. Like, it just overwhelms me because when she starts talking about hers, I start thinking about mine, and then I kind of get like, ugh, I'm not ready yet, It starts to make me feel already in work mode as opposed to relaxing weekend mode. Another way to improve our vocational self-care is growing, and that goes again with working on things that help you be prepared for the next position. That for yourself and your career. Yep, I think that's it, guys. And so that is the remainder. That's the end of our lecture. So if you guys have any questions or feedback, please let me know. I'd love to hear it. And then I really hope you guys can kind of take these tools into your future roles, in your relationships, in your own journey, and, your own career. So thank you, everyone, this semester. And I'm really excited for you guys to get all of this knowledge in your undergraduate studies before you enter, the career workforce.